Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Sitting with Sean. My name is Sean. I'm a person in long term recovery. What does that mean? That means that I have not used any mind altering substances since December 2019. Today, I'm very, very humbled to have my very first guest and a good friend of mine, Alicia Westberg. Alicia, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, Sean. Thank you. My name's Alicia. I am also a person in long time recovery. I got sober 9/21/18. I identify mainly as a recovering alcoholic, but my problem is spiritual, mental, and physical. And I'm just really pleased to be the first guest on your show. And recovery is awesome. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've known Alicia for almost 2 years now, and I worked with her in one of the current programs that I'm working in, and I couldn't think of anybody better to be my first guest than Alicia. And so I'm eternally grateful for you being here, and thank you for taking the time to hang out with me for a little bit and talk about your story. All right, so go ahead, tell us, what was it like?
Really honored
What?
to be here. Thank you. Yeah, what was it like? So uh yeah, so hi, my name's Alicia. I was born and raised in Laguna Beach, California. And My mom is a normie, but my dad is in recovery. My parents got divorced when I was 10. Yeah, I'm an only child. And I don't my first experience with alcohol was actually kind of fun. It was more mischievous, right? And I had many pleasurable experiences, which probably is why it took me a long road to get here. But um, I, the first time I picked up alcohol, it was more mischievous. My parents had taken me to a barbecue, and I was like under the age of 10. I was like 8 or 7, somewhere in there, and at the barbecue there was a keg and there was a bunch of people, and it was just a fun camaraderie, and a bunch of us kids like snuck some beer from that keg, and I didn't get intoxicated, but it was more like a social catalyst, and we were doing something fun and we were being sneaky and mischievous, and it was just kind of a good feeling, and so that wasn't like the chemicals affected me as much, maybe, but just that, like, I had a good, like, sneaky fun time, kind of
Yeah.
stuff with me. That was a positive experience. And then the next time I pick up alcohol was the summer after my parents got divorced. I ended up meeting some friends that were a couple years older than me, and in turn, we started hanging out at the beach with some boys that were older than us, and it wasn't anything like dangerous or sexual, but it was they were cool, and they had some beer and some weed, and I was kind of joining in. It was like more like to just be part of the crowd and experimenting, but and once again, like, I was uh, super kind of more into the experience of it rather than the I hadn't I wasn't into the getting high part of it yet, like feeling the effects of alcohol so much yet. It was more about being cool and being around other people that I could relate to, because I had that. I don't know if it's just from being an only child or whatever it is. I have that I'm broken up here, and I just um, I felt a part of, and I held on to that, and unfortunately, though, that's that's not the most healthy way to be a part of a community, and so I knew that was not the right path, though, and like, I kind of just started hanging out with people my own age as soon as school started again, and I didn't actually start like actively drinking and getting intoxicated until my freshman year in high school. Excuse me. And yeah, freshman year in high school, I experienced my first consequence as a result of drinking. Uh, my friends had uh, what you would call like a short day in high school. They were able to take 0 period and then get out at lunch. And we had an open campus at the high school I went to at lunch. And so a bunch of them were pre-gaming. They were partying before they went to this concert. They had tickets to go to Monsters of Rock. I did not have tickets to go to Monsters of Rock, but I was partying with them. And then I decided, well, I'm going to go back to school because my last class was PE and we were going to go swimming. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to go swimming in the pool, and I've been smoking weed and drinking whatever. And, I'll just go back to class and I'll just lay low and, no big deal. I'll maintain. And, but I got a note to go to the office for some unrelated issue, and totally, that all that maintaining and laying low slipped right out of my head. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go to the office, find out what this is all about. And, that it was for something, not, I wasn't in trouble or whatever, but the, whoever was at the desk smelled alcohol in my breath and reported it. And I got suspended from school for a week, and I had to write an essay. I believe it was a 100-word essay on the dangers of drinking alcohol. And my dad had to take me to like an alcohol class or something when he was deep in his addiction at this time. But my mom refused to take me, and she said, you're going to have to call somebody else to take you. I refuse. And that's kind of how my mom was. She just that's after my parents got divorced, I kind of I thought I as I worked the steps, I thought I really loved my freedom that I had when I was young, and I tried to be responsible with it. But what I found out is that what I deeply desired was structure and rules. And this freedom stuff that allowed me to run amok was definitely not good, and I probably deceived myself into thinking that was cool when it wasn't. So anyway, I had to write the essay. I was able to do that, and I pretty much kept my nose clean. Graduated high school. So, yeah. I had a little bout with speed that kind of kept me a little bit sober-ish. I wasn't experiencing a downhill spiral from alcohol, because that kind of I don't know if I would say I was a responsible meth user, but I was somewhat productive and somewhat not super drunk for a couple of years because of that. And then I met my ex-husband, and we both said, oh, no, that's no good. We're not going to do that. But we drink, and for the most part, we were pretty we were functional, I guess is the word. We were functional somewhat. Yeah, I mean, we both worked hard and we played hard, but we would be responsible most of the time. I did have another incident, kind of a wake-up call. I crashed into a mailbox driving home drunk from my job in the middle of nowhere, Montana. I was living in Big Fork, Montana, and I managed to get my car home. Nobody had witnessed it. I didn't even know what I hit, but I figured it out like later on after driving the route, which is like then one lane. It's just like a 2-lane highway. Yeah, I lied, said I hit a deer. The insurance company said, where's the blood? And I said, oh, well, it was raining that night. And they said, well, where's the hair? And I said, it was raining. It was stormy. I said, I don't know. It took you guys a while to come out here and look at it. And I just kind of stonewalled them, and they paid for it. They paid for it, and I got away with driving drunk and hitting a mailbox. And I didn't, I did not go and apologize to those people or anything like that. But I had in my early 20s, even though I was in my alcoholism, I had found out power greater than myself. I had become a born again Christian, and that started to weigh heavy on me. Like somehow that spirituality works, right? Like I started to understand that the way I drank was not like other people, right? Like I wasn't a normie drinker, and when I was very observant, because especially since I work in the bar restaurant industry, and and I'd observe my in-laws and other people around me, how they drink. And like, so I knew that the way my dad would drink was kind of, out of control, because, he had admitted that. But I became cognizant of that all of a sudden. And I think before I was just super in denial about it. Right. And it was kind of like that yin and yang, right? It was kind of like everything or nothing, right? Like I'd openly admit to people I was an alcoholic and just, deal with it. But at the same time, like I don't think I truly believed inside that I was. I thought I had it under control, like I got this, and uh, you know, and so that's very delusional thinking, and just so much so, right? And that's why I need you guys. That's why I need my sponsor and the program and Wellness Court, all you guys. Just I need it all. So yeah, I got away with this thing, but yeah, and so as a result of my spirituality, I really just started to kind of to lean into that, and I was dry for a couple of years, and that worked for a while, and I did get a little bit of pink cloud. It felt good, but it was hard when I was around a bunch of drinking people. It was just I'd get real tight. I was real dry. Yeah, it got to be so difficult, and I finally just snapped, and spirituality can only take me so far. I didn't have a community. And so the spirituality is great, but like, I'm not even involved in that community, right? Like at one point I was, but then I moved to Anchorage and I didn't get, that church I was going to in Montana. I didn't really, I started going to church here, but I wasn't really involved. What happened was I got a really good job in a restaurant, and it was, they were throwing a lot of hours at me, and I was like, sure, I want to make money. And so like money became kind of my God at that point. And when I hear other people's recovery stories, I hear things and themes like this, right? Like, yeah, so I wasn't drinking, and those good opportunities came my way, but I wasn't fully invested in giving back, And now that I look back and in retrospect, and I see that's, and I started holding on to that, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it was what it was, and it took me a long time, right? And it was just a downhill spiral. It took forever. It took until until I got into recovery, and in 18, and yeah, I've had 5 DUIs. I had 2 in 2018. I am fortunate they even let me back into wellness court. I was concerned about that because I had enrolled, but then I hadn't even gone to like the first thing after I got back from inpatient treatment down in Washington. But they did, and wellness court's really good like that. They'll actually, I think you got to really, really do some serious stuff and not get back in it if you truly want to. But yeah, I don't know. So I guess I don't know if that was too fast of what it was like. Yeah, just jail. I was in jail during the earthquake. I was in jail for 3 months. And, that was not a place I wanted to be. And these girls that were in there thought that jail was cool. They thought that Highland Mountain Correctional Facility was, the cream of the crop. If you're going to do some time, that is like, camp cupcake is what one girl called it. And I was just like, I was so like, no. But
Yeah.
it's what I needed. And I did have a very spiritual experience while I was in there. While I was, you could call it DTing or you could call it spiritual experience, but I'll run with, maybe a little of both. And so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of what you said. My first touch of alcohol, I don't really like consider it a touch of alcohol, but when I was a kid, 3 or 4, my mom was at work and she had some friends watching her, and I ran into the fridge and they had wine coolers in there, and I killed the whole thing thinking that was Kool-Aid. And she found me behind the couch with a bunch of wine coolers all over the place, and they thought it was cute and funny. Looking back now, it's not so cute and funny. You know what I mean? But I can also, I can relate to that fitting in portion, like, kind of going to limits to fit in, going to the limits that you went to fit in to a crowd, or at least feel like you fit in. I can understand that and relate to that. And I had stints of sobriety as well, where I wasn't working a program, um, where I was just saying that I was sober and I was abstaining from alcohol or drugs, but I wasn't working a program, and my life was manageable to a point. And then every single time that something happened that was catastrophic to me, I always turned back to my drug of choice. And so I can definitely relate there. So what led you into recovery?
Sorry, the mic was a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Oh, what led you into recovery?
Do you think it's mine?
It might be mine. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So what led you into recovery?
Oh, what led me into recovery? Thank you for asking that. So yeah, what really led me into recovery was I was finally ready, right? So the 2 DUIs I got in 2018, I was already dipping my toe into the recovery, but I didn't. What had happened was, so I got the first DUI. It was like, I think it was January 25th, 2 days after my birthday. And so I did 3 days. I got bailed out by my father-in-law. My father-in-law says, you've got to, shapen up and fly right, and I'm going to put you to work, right? But I don't think he understood the recovery process, but he did know somebody who was in recovery who's worked at an AA program for a very long time, and she kind of gave him some pointers of what I should do. And then he talked to some other people and some attorneys, and they said, hey, there's this thing called wellness court. And so I originally got into that, and so I did. I went to this place in Washington. I went to Sundown Mountain Ranch, which was a great facility, by the way, but I just wasn't ready. I paid out of pocket, and then I was supposed to do that first interview or whatever. I had already met with Ebony once, Ebony Evans, my PO officer, and she was giving me all this direction. And I was trying to write this stuff down, and my brain is just not. I mean, like literally, I couldn't rub 2 sticks together to keep it together, right? Like I mean, you could have given me a list with 2 things on it to do for that day, and it was just really like difficult for me. But anyway, so it just felt impossible, and I guess it just wasn't quite ready yet. So what had happened was I was supposed to go to this first. It was like an introduction to wellness court or whatever. And then again, like me, like doing this stuff separate from all the people, rather than being in Aquila or just being part of that whole group that I was in the second time, like just going off to a separate treatment, and then, supposed to be diving into this stuff. I guess had I been more ready and willing, it probably could have worked, but I wasn't that enthusiastic yet. I was scared, and I did not know what the heck was going on. I didn't have anybody holding my hand, and that's what I needed really, and unfortunately, but so I missed this first thing. What had happened is I'm a caregiver. My mother-in-law was upstairs just crying, and I'm like, I gotta go to this thing, and she was just wigging out, and I didn't understand at the time that it was okay to just leave her up here. I just wanted an excuse to not go to this thing. Whatever, it happened, and I missed the first thing. They threw me out of wellness court. They said, you got to go get an ankle monitor on and do your time, and at that point I was off and running. I was like, forget this, forget it. And every single chance I got, I was sneaking off. I had no license to drive. I actually, had all these charges looming over me, but I still have keys. And I'm running down the street, and I'm grabbing me some Fireball whiskey, because that's all I could stomach. And that was my favorite thing. And it had a devil on the bottle. And yeah, Fireball whiskey, man. And my father-in-law would be looking for it. He's like, where's your hooch? And I'd be like, And I'd find these great hiding places, and then I'd only, at that point I couldn't even like process the alcohol. My liver couldn't process it anymore, and like I would take a few sips and then go and hide it somewhere great, and then I wouldn't remember where it was, and then I'd dry out for a couple of days, and then I'd be cleaning, and I'd run into it, and then I'd be off and running again because I'd find it, and then so What had happened when I got the second DUI was kind of funny, actually. If we have a moment to just tell it. So the one that really led me in here, I was down at Cars trying to pick up, and it was I'd gone into the store and I got my Fireball whiskey, and I'd come out and I'd parked right in front, and it was I guess kind of like rush hour or whatever at the store, and I every time I went to go back out my car, I had a Tahoe at the time, and I go to put it in reverse, and every time there'd be a car coming or a person there or something, and so I'd back up and then I'd pull back forward. I'd back up, I'd pull back. Apparently, I was doing this for like an hour, and I'd already had snaking a couple of snorts and swigs, and finally somebody reported me. Like it was obvious to everybody else, but to me, I don't know. I didn't. I guess I don't know what. I just wanted to get the heck home with my Fireball whiskey, and this cop knocks on my window. You've been drinking? Yes. Okay, well, we're gonna go. I said, okay. And I just went peacefully. It was kind of like I had just given up the ghost. Thank God. It was kind of like, even though I don't think I was consciously aware of that, I think deep down in my soul, I was just ready. And I was like, thank God. And but then the enormity of the situation, as we were like in the traffic circle heading to or at the light. I don't think there was a traffic circle then. We were at the light heading to go downtown to get booked, and then the enormity of the situation overwhelmed me, and it came, and I realized, oh my gosh, I have an open case and this and that, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in trouble. My boss is gonna kill me. If you let me go, I'll give you a $200 Nordstrom gift card. So I tried to bribe the cop. Fortunately, he didn't charge me. Yeah, so that's kind of a funny story there, but yeah, I had this really cool spiritual experience when they put me in like the psych ward for the first, not the first night or whatever. It was like when I finally got to Highland. I started having like some DTs and hallucinations, and I don't think I was disruptive or anything, but like somebody must have said like she needs some help, and anyway, they put me in isolation, and they just observed me. But I really did. I had this spiritual experience. I had a dream that I was driving a convertible vehicle, and I was going on a picnic to a mountaintop. And later on, my spiritual mentor told me that was like, that was me kind of seeing like, that it was that, the promised land is up ahead. The signposts are ready, and it was kind of like that hallelujah, I guess, vision of the future. But yeah, so I was ready. Like in jail, like the earthquake happens, and like all these things, like this girl who's super scary and hard, like all of a sudden was asking me to pray with her, and she was nice to me, and her name was Loka. There was no AA meetings at the time, but I was getting my hands on all the literature I could. Yeah, and so the second, I couldn't get a hold of nobody because of that, but finally, as soon as I could get a hold of a public defender, I was able to tell him that my desire was to get in wellness court. And I didn't think I was going to be able to get back, but I was, and I was incarcerated with a couple of my peers nice. From the program. So that looking back, that was kind of that was really kind of a cool spiritual thing too, But yeah, one of us didn't make it. She's not here, but one of us is.
Yeah. So for everybody listening out there, Alicia, can you tell us what Wellness Court is?
Wellness Court is a restorative justice program that you can sign a Rule of 11 to get into, and it can you can get lessened fines, you can get less time, and if you're facing loss of a license, you have the ability to get a driver's license with the use of an interlock device. You get the recovery you need, you get the counseling you need, you get resources. You have a PO that's willing to get to know you as a human and get you the help that you need, rather than just lock you up and throw away the key. It's if a person is willing to do the things that are asked of them, you're really going to get all the tools necessary at your disposal to get recovery. And so the things they ask you to do are not hard, but they can be hard for those of us that are entering on the new journey of sobriety, because they require us to be on time. We have to get to places on time, and sometimes time management is a huge issue for us. We have to be willing to take direction and do some assignments. We have to be willing to pee in a cup and produce. We have to make sure that we are accountable. So that part of that process is doing UAs, and so it kind of keeps us accountable and gets us healthy, and hopefully the things we're learning sink into the brain at the same time, if we're willing and ready. And sometimes we're not even willing and ready and they sink in, right? Like some people come into wellness court like, okay, I'll give it a try, I don't know if this is going to work, and it works for them. And some people are kind of like me. I needed it desperately, and I was willing, but it was hard. It was so hard for me. I was so broken, and it was just my PO and my counselor were forever pushing me onto my peers, like, please go talk to your peers, quit leaning on us. But that was good, because they encouraged me. They didn't say you have to do this or else. They just said you can do this, and they encouraged me. They weren't mean. So it's kind of, and I think maybe it was even helpful for my father-in-law to see that, because he kind of wanted to give me that tough love, and maybe he saw that that wellness programs.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for Veterans Court, it's the same way, time management's everything, as well as UAs. We follow the same, pretty much same therapeutic model that Wellness Court does. And so I know for myself, it helped me out tremendously. And just like you, I was super scared when I went in there first. I wanted it and I needed it. I know I did, but I was so nervous, because this is a new way of life for me. This is something that I have to adjust to, and I don't do well with adjusting to new things. And
we don't.
No,
change is the enemy,
Change for me, change was absolutely mortifying, but it was something that I needed, and I'm forever grateful that I was a part of that program, and I'm continuing to be a part of the program.
Me too.
So when you entered into recovery, what were some of the programs that you were going to, and like, what was your experience like?
So that's kind of an interesting question too. Thank you for. So one of the things when I bailed, well, I didn't bail out. I'm sorry. When I finally got out of jail on an ankle monitor, they put me on an alcohol, because I'd served part of my time on that first DUI, and then so they let me out with the knowledge that I was going to be not very much of a flight risk, because I wanted to get into wellness courts, and so my father-in-law said, and because I had done some sketchy things, originally he was kind of like rescuing me, but then now it was like, if you don't do these things, you're going to have nowhere to live, and I'm going to be homeless, right? And I'm pretty sure he meant it. So he said, okay, yes, you can come back to live with us, but you're going to have to work, and you have to go to an AA meeting. Now, this was totally my higher power, I believe, because before he was not pushing the wellness court stuff. He didn't care about any of that. He didn't even care about the treatment. I think all he wanted me to do was take care of my mother. He just wanted somebody to take care of his problems, and hopefully that was taking two birds with one stone type of thing. Is the saying I was looking for. So like I said, putting me to work. So anyways, he says you have to go to an AA meeting. And this is before I've even gone to my first court date, and I say, okay. Once again, scared to death. I think I'm going to die. But he says, find a meeting and I will drop you off. Yeah. And so there's one up the street from my house, which I go to every Sunday and Thursday. And so he drops me off. I'm probably like shaking this much. I'm just like, but I walk in there. There's a hug line. And I'm like, I don't get that, right? Like the people are like sticking out their hands to hug, and I'm like, hi, how you doing? I
Yeah.
just breeze right by that line, and I go sit down, and I sit down next to a gal, and I probably just looked extremely new, and but she was very nice and gracious to me, and she finally, I just kind of sat there squirming, and she finally kind of leaned over and whispered to me like, "Hey, hi, my name's Tammy." I said, "Hi, nice to meet you." And then the meeting continued, and then like I think during seventh tradition, she says, "You sponsor?" And I said, "Or are you looking for a sponsor?" And something to that effect. And I said, "Yeah, I do. I Yes, I am." And she said, "Okay." And she said, "Let's talk after." And then so afterwards, she kind of started just getting me all into this whole structured type of thing that she was doing at the time. She was in her home group at that time was Glacier Group, and so they run a very structured AA type. Um, you know, it's enthusiastic recovery, I guess, is what I've heard it been called at other meetings that are kind of. It's based on a meeting that came out of California, and so that some of that enthusiastic recovery has spread to other AA groups nationwide, and so it's basically having a sponsor, calling at a time convenient for them, working the 12 steps, having a home group, having meetings at all the meetings, having a job at all the meetings you attend, and and calling people in recovery every day. For me, that was women because I'm divorced and whatever. So females stick with females, and males stick with males in the beginning. No 13 stepping type of thing.
Yep. We're not doing that today. We ain't doing that today.
Yeah. So that's but that was another spiritual experience, right? Here's this lady that was right next to me, and is what it's just really what I needed, like really working a good program herself and ready to get me working a program, because I really need that structure. I need that wellness court. I need a sponsor who keeps me accountable. I didn't know that I needed and craved all this structure my whole life, but that's really like just that's what I do well under it. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I know when I went to my first meeting, I was petrified. I went to the VA domiciliary here in town, and they had meetings in house before the pandemic, and I was like, yeah, I'm about to do this. And then I got there and I was like, no, no, I'm scared. I'm scared. So I didn't share for like the first month. Um, but yeah, it was such a great experience. Ours was a little bit different than a traditional one because it was more tough love. It was all men. We had a few females that showed up from time to time, but it was all men, all veterans. It was the tough love, here are the steps, here's the traditions, get your life back on track. Oh, I'm back in the Army again. um,
My sponsor's kind of tough love, right? Like, yeah, no,
yeah,
if I don't do the things she suggests, she's like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess you don't want some recovery then.
yeah,
Talk to you later."
yeah,
And I'm like, "Oh, wait, no."
yeah. But then my experience changed after the pandemic happened, right? So
Mm-hmm.
pandemic started, and then the therapeutic courts went into find a Zoom meeting.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to find a Zoom meeting. I don't want to have to search. I don't want to have to do the research, but I did, and I found a home group out of Jonesboro, Georgia, and there's some amazing people there, and yeah, just some great people. I got my sponsor out of there, a really nice guy, and him and I have shared so much of our recovery journey together. It's great, and they're just I wouldn't say backwoods country, but like they're very very southern, very country and Bible Belt. They believe in and and a little bit of everything. So it's a beautiful thing, and I do love my home group. So while you were in the therapeutic courts, like what transformed? What do you feel was the moment that was like, aha, I get it. This is something that I need for the rest of my life.
Well, that's a really good question, because I feel like I'm having aha moments all the time once I get into the program. I feel like I had that main spiritual experience once I was in jail, and I just absolutely knew that I had to get into a wellness course, and that that was going to be the wave I rode. But it was, what was really super hard for me, and a lot of people, I hear them say that MRT was the thing for them, but for me, it was relapse prevention. I could not get the warning signs down, right? And then there was a friend of mine up here in the program who didn't quite make it. He said to me, I don't know why, I had this block in my brain that I thought that the relapse prevention project of writing warning signs, which you needed 10 of them to basically get out of that class, was I thought they had to be real, right? Like I didn't realize that you could just make them up, because I kept saying to myself, like, well, how can how do I tie in the whole thing, right? Okay, all right. So say I run into some booze, and then and I don't touch it, and then, therefore it's this, and I was really up in my head about it. And then finally my friend said, Alicia, you can make this stuff up. It doesn't have to be true. And I was like, oh, and then I was off and running and having so much fun with that warning sign. And I just don't know why that was such a block for me. We'd be running through them every single Friday and in relapse prevention twice a day for the first month. And I just wasn't engaged. And finally, like 6 weeks in, it clicked. And then I was like, yeah, okay. So I just really dig the warning sign as a tool, because you can use it for anything, right? Like if I do this, and this is going to happen, right? Everything has repercussions. And I feel like all my life, I just wasn't like aware of that. Like I'm just one of these people that just doesn't think things through, even though I'm not like a risk taker very much, unless I've consumed some alcohol. I'm not like a daredevil or whatever, but like I'm dangerous though, because up here I lie. I'm deceived up here with my own. I'm mentally ill.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have
We all
recovered. Yeah.
We're all a little mentally ill, but I do like that you said relapse prevention, because I loved relapse prevention. I loved every bit of the program that I was in. I mean, I don't think that there's anything in that program that I was like, I could take that out and survive. I liked relapse prevention because it showed me the different stages of relapse, right? So like you have your emotional relapse, you have your mental relapse, and you have your physical, and how each one ties into each other. And I never got that. I never realized that until that moment, till somebody was like, till my relapse prevention counselor was like, a mental leads into an emotional, leads into a physical. And you can stop at any point. You can even stop when you got the bottle on your hand, or you take the first sip.
Right.
And I was like, what? You can stop? You can
Right.
Yeah, you can stop, man. That's a possibility.
I never slowed that process down, right? And I never thought that I was picking up alcohol in my head before I'd even gone out and physically done it, right?
Yeah.
But then I hear other people talking about that in the rooms, right? Like you've picked up way before you ever get to that store, that party, or whatever, most of the time, right? Like you're sitting up, you're planning it out, you're processing it, you're ready to do whatever it takes most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, some people have a slip, right, where something happens, and then but that's what the warning sign's all about, right? And then something happens.
I absolutely love that saying. I always say that, like whatever social media I'm on, I'm talking about something. I said, and then something happens. That is the phrase that stuck with me through my whole recovery. There's a few phrases, but that's one of them. And then something happened, because that really points out the shift, right? The everything's okay, then something happened, and now we're in crisis mode.
Right.
Yeah. But the other program you mentioned, MRT changed my life, man. I don't think that I would be sober or continuing doing this if it wasn't for MRT.
I want to agree with that. And I want to say, like, it ran congruent for me with the 12 steps, the way my program worked for me. And that was just an accident-ish, like, I mean, I don't think anything happens on accident, but like, that was just kind of the way it worked for me. And like, and it, like, the MRT is not designed to work with the 12 steps per se, but for me, it really, like, they were they were kind of congruent. So it was really awesome. Like I thought that was another spiritual experience, right? Like that was just pretty.
Yeah,
I loved
I got
MRT.
I got into the program, and like I heard everybody, even like my mentor, say, "Oh, you're gonna hate MRT. MRT is the worst thing that you will ever do in this program." And I got terrified, right? And
I was terrified too. Yeah.
I get into my first group, my first MRT group, and we have this really just hard knocks veteran named Ray, and I love Ray to death. Now I do. I didn't like him at the time. Just hard knocks guy, and you know, he held that old school army mentality. And then he was like, "All right, you got to do step one." So I read over and I do step one, and I'm confident. I go in step one, and I go to share, and at the end of it, I look up from my book. After I do my testimony, I look up from my book, and everybody's staring at me, and I got this instant dread, like I am the worst person in the room. Nobody's heard anything worse than that, right?
Yeah.
And Ray didn't say anything to me. Yeah, I left the room, and then called me back in. They're like, "You passed," and I was like, "Oh God, thank you." Yeah, but I don't feel great about what I just told you, you know?
Mm.
And then I called my mentor and I said, "Hey man, like I don't feel good. You know, you're supposed to feel good after you share these things." And he's like, "No, you're not. Not in MRT." And that's when I started adopting, like, okay, well, I have to go through a little bit of pain in order to recover. And this is part of it. So MRT changed my life to the point where like I have my certification to be an MRT instructor now.
Awesome.
I if I find something I love, I'm going right after it, and because I want to share what I have. So what is it like now? Now that you've been in recovery for a while, and you know you graduated from therapeutic courts, what is it like now?
You know, my life isn't super different, and I'm super stoked about that, right? Like you know, the pandemic was interesting, right? So you know, half of my wellness core program was in the regular, you know, like where you had to get to all the things in person without a license. But then part of it was on Zoom, and I'm really grateful for Zoom too. And I'm glad that I got both of those experiences, and now we're kind of back in person. At least for me, I do both still. And um, so what it's like now is like I'm like I love recovery. I love you know, I just because I graduated the program doesn't mean I don't still do lots of things. I'm super active as much as I can. I still have the same job, which is, you know, I'm a caregiver. I had the opportunity to open a little side business. I have like my own little side cleaning business, and it's, you know, I don't advertise or whatever. I just, the things kind of fall in my lap, the business kind of falls in my lap. And it's just such a pleasure to stay involved with alumni group and to stay involved with AA. You know, a lot of my sisters in my sponsorship line, they work Al-Anon as well as AA, but like I work alumni and AA. And I just, that's, you know, that's kind of what it looks like now, right? The tools that I learned are, you know, to not future trip, one day at a time, just, you know, give it to God, um, you know, pick up all the tools, right? Journal a little bit, call my sponsor, call some peers, be willing to reach out my hand, stay active in the recovery community, no matter, you know, what those look like, whatever the events, you know, if it's a moving party, if it's game night, if it's, you know, the wellness walk, if it's joining a Zoom group, if it's joining a in-person group, if it's um, just, yeah, recovery comes first. That's my sponsor stressed, and wellness coach stressed to me that my recovery needs to come first. If you put anything before your recovery, that's the first thing you're going to lose, is what I've been told. And I truly am I'm afraid to you know, so there's nothing to fear but fear itself, right? And there's one healthy fear I have in my life, and that's if I quit doing the, you know, structured recovery, you know, it's jails, institutions, and death. And I've already had jails and institutions. So death is basically next for me. And I don't want to die. Like I was never suicidal during my active addiction, but like basically that's what I was doing. I was killing myself slowly. And it was painful. And but I had so much denial, so much horse blinders on. I don't see that. I have, you know, my I had no self esteem, no self worth, and it's no wonder, right? I wasn't
Yeah.
doing anything. Taking the right spiritual actions and doing things that make a difference is what I strive for today. So,
Yeah. So you spoke about staying connected, and staying connected. What does that mean to you, like in total? What does that mean to
staying connected in total. It means I got to pick up that phone, this heavy phone that I'm using
you?
to Zoom with you, or I mean to StreamYard with you. I got to pick that thing up. I've got to, I got to show up for things that I've committed myself to. People depend on me today, and I don't call something off or change plans unless it's absolutely necessary, right? I don't flake on people today. I don't, I have to have a good reason to. Um, and if I make a mistake today, I don't beat myself up over it. Um, yeah, it's taking actions. When I take the next right indicated action that builds a little bit of self esteem in me, and I keep the train rolling. Um, and it can be small little things, right? It doesn't have to be, like I was saying, showing up on time, calling my sponsor at a time that's convenient for her, working those steps, doing that commitment at my meetings, reaching my hand out when I see a newcomer, calling people, just yeah, and even in like my normie friends' life, right? Like
Yeah.
I volunteer for my neighbor down the street. I help her out. My and people ask me for rides to the airport, like like stuff like that, right? Like things that like normal community minded people do that I wasn't doing before I got here, right? All I cared about was me, myself, and I, and how am I going to pick up my next drink, basically, and yeah, and I thought that I cared about other people, but I really didn't. I just all I cared about was getting mine, and the rest was, if I had time for you, maybe I would do it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You talked about making commitments and sticking to those commitments, and that's been something that I struggled with when I first started my recovery journey. Is like making those commitments and then sticking with them. And a lot of within the last I guess say year now for me, I've been really focusing on that. If I make a commitment and it's reasonable and it doesn't affect my recovery in a negative manner, I'm gonna go do it. And and as long as it doesn't make a detriment to everybody around as well. Like if
Mhm.
if it's something that's going to enrich my recovery, I'm going to do it. So like our recovery walk did that, and there was a situation that did take place that did raise some eyebrows, but I had to go explain, say this is a part of my recovery. This is something that is very important to me. That's going to not necessarily keep me sober, but it's going to help promote my recovery and help support others' recovery. And that's what it's all about, right? It's supporting other people.
Yeah. You had a
Yeah.
questionable eyebrow raising thing for the walk?
Oh no, it wasn't like a questionable eye raising thing. I had to essentially step out of my comfort zone and say, hey, look, there's an engagement that was planned, but it was a time constraint. As sorry about my camera. There's a time constraint that fit within the same parameters of our walk, and I had to go out and explain that this is a part of my recovery. This is important to me, and is going to help keep me connected. And I've already made a commitment to it, so I can't back out of it.
That makes me think of something. Boundaries, right? I had no
Yeah,
boundaries before recovery. I didn't know how to do that. What you just explained, what you did, right? Like I couldn't do that. I don't know what it was, but I couldn't tell people like, hey, this comes first, and everything else is going to come after. And boundaries was so helpful to me when I finally learned that here. And especially I really learned that in because of the wellness core program. It just comes first. I have to do it or I'm going to jail. And I was able to tell people no, finally,
Yeah, communicating those boundaries is huge too, in a respectful manner. And that's something that I always had a problem with, was communicating them effectively but respectfully. Not F off, I don't want to do this, but hey, this is a part of my recovery and it's important to me. And I've made this commitment. I've been working really hard on maintaining my commitments. So I'm sorry, but respectfully, I can't do this. And it helped benefit a lot. It was good.
Yeah, oh my God.
Yeah, being kind and gracious. Right? Kind and gracious. Yep. So all right, spaced on my question. I had a question, man, that I was going to ask, but So before we go, is there any advice or suggestion that you might give people that are looking to get into recovery or having a hard time maintaining their recovery?
Well, that's a really good question, because it's different for everybody, I think. But if you're ready and you're, you feel like you want to dip your toe or go in full bore, my suggestion is to get a mentor or a sponsor, hit those meetings, get lots of phone numbers, and stay as active with the recovery community as you can. The closer you get to people who are doing the same things that your goals are, the easier it'll be to transition into that. Doing, and you said a little bit about this. Doing esteemable actions gives us that happiness that we desire, that we cannot find in a bottle, right? That spiritual hole that many of us find lacking. It's that one of the ways to fill that. Of course, prayer and meditation, I would suggest for sure, but definitely just grabbing onto somebody who's has recovery that you want. If you see somebody that has some recovery that you want, then stick close to that person, become Velcro, and do what they do. And that because if you stick with the winners, you're gonna get to the winner circle. So definitely.
Yeah, I know that you were talking about like mentors and stuff like that, and I've picked out a few mentors, but in every phase of my life, there's been a mentor, and I see something in them I like. And so when I first got into therapeutic court, there's a guy that I looked at, and I was like, that man has the answers. He may not be perfect, but he knows what to do and what not to do. And so I'm going to follow his lead. He didn't even know at the time that he was my mentor, but I looked at him as my mentor. And then now, being in the phase of my life I'm in, I've got 2 or 3 mentors that I look up to, and I'm like, these guys are and gals are the ones that are doing the right thing. And they have the recovery that I want, and they have the knowledge that I want. So I'm going to go ahead, and every chance I get, I'm going to pick their brain for the knowledge.
Absolutely. And I do actually have a spiritual mentor too, which is helpful too, right? So, and I think any tools, anything, right? Like I think counseling, I'm seeing a psychotherapist right now, whatever tools anybody can pick up, I think are definitely useful. I think the more tools, the better. The phone you have is a little mini computer, and it's a great tool. There's Zoom meetings all over the world. And it's, I don't know, for some reason I had this negative connotation in my head before recovery, that recovery might be dull or boring. And I think a lot of people have this, but it's not. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah. I thought I wasn't even gonna be able to have fun when I got into recovery, and I was like, man, this is gonna be my life is just gonna change. It's gonna get tumultuous. But I learned you can have fun in recovery doing the same things that you did, but sober.
And not only that, it's better because you remember them and you're better at it because Intoxicated, right?
Yeah. I can go sing karaoke sober, and that's amazing. Yeah, the nerves still get to me, but I can still do it. And
Oh,
go play pool.
every single time we take that action that's scary, that's an esteemable one, and we get another little, chink in the armor because yeah, it is hard to do those. It is hard, so hard, right? So hard to do those painful things like karaoke or do that first step in MRT or to give a 10-minute at a AA meeting or something like that. It's so hard, but gosh, it's
Yeah,
good when you're done. You get
yeah,
that pink cloud.
yeah. Your brain gets in the way, and sometimes you gotta step out of your own way.
That
And,
caveman brain.
yeah, it's like
Mm.
hello. Yeah, definitely. Well, Alicia, I really appreciate you hanging out with me for this hour. I really appreciate you sharing your story and your experience, strength, and hope with me and with us. Um, you're a very valuable asset to the recovery community, and I just thank you for taking the time to hang out with us.
Oh my gosh, Sean, thank you so much. I'm just honored and blessed, and I I respect what you're doing. It's really, really, really cool. Thank you for being of service.
Thank you, thank you,
Mm.
Alicia. All right, we're gonna go ahead and jump off here. I'm gonna sign off. This is Sean. I hope you guys have a very good day, very good week. Our next guest is going to be Carlos Diaz, and he's got a great story. So I'll talk to you guys later. And this is signing off. Have a good day.